I'll just sort of stand right here so you can sort of look at me.
Yeah.
And I can look at the tube. Okay.
Are we rolling?
What was that one question? Oh, yeah.
We're going?
We're rolling. I'll make sure to insert that in film. You look like a fool. Okay. As far as influences. Oh, yeah. The one question I really wanted to ask was the fact that, in regards to the accessibility of your art, the fact that it's considered non-commercial, maybe you could just expound upon that.
Yeah, I notice a lot that when I'm at conventions or when I'm sending a submission to a publisher, the fact that it's cartoony gives it a real, it just gives it there's a prejudice against cartooning, I found, at conventions and with publishers. And even though they're called comic books, it's dominated by the serious style of art, so Ultraklutz has a hard time because of that.
So, who are your influences? Because it's unique.
I think a lot of the influences are sort of subconscious from stuff that I read as a kid, like Don Martin, Sergio Aragonés, all the mad stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as far as actually looking at styles and trying to emulate some of the details and things, I'd say, like Robert Crumb, Basil Wolverton. Some of the, generally the real detailed cartoonists. Basically what I'm doing. Cartooning, but with a lot of... It's like cartooning, but it could exist in a real space. It's three-dimensional, and you can see, what's happening in the picture plane.
Okay. How do you see yourself in relation to other artists? Just how does that go? Brilliant questioning.
I don't know. I feel different. I feel like I'm trying to do something that people aren't ready for or don't want. Or I don't know. I think I'm trying to do something that there's people out there that want it, but the big publishers don't know it yet because they're turning me away and they're saying, no, we don't want to publish this. No, people don't want to read this yet. People that pick it up and look at it and read it like it.
Mm-hmm.
And along those lines also, as far as the cartooniness, the detailed cartooniness, I sent a proposal to a company and I got a letter back from the assistant editor. And he says, this is nice and it's okay, but it just wouldn't sell because the artist, he didn't even know it was me, he says the artist tries to be too detailed in his cartooning. That was his reason why it wasn't commercial.
His criticism.
But big deal. I mean, there's so many famous detailed cartoonists,
They're just
the
working
classics,
right now.
Will Elder and Harvey Kurtzman and all these guys are, the classics. And it's detailed cartooning, so.
Okay, here's a different thrust. Do you anticipate being able to make a living doing Ultraklutz?
I do now, yeah. Even thinking realistically, I think yes. For a while I was thinking that maybe I could do it just starting publishing a distributed comic that I could make a living, but now I'm going to try to face reality and I'm going to do it as a weekends and evenings thing. And then, after a few issues, if it grows a little bit, then I can try to jump out of the job and go monthly or something and produce so much that I'll turn enough dollars over to make a living.
So you're thinking that's feasible?
Yeah, I think it is. Anything else?
Gosh, I had some real direct line of questioning. I think we got some good stuff so far.
Yeah.
Okay, as far as what you're doing, this small format comic book that you're publishing yourself, is it a movement? Is it unique?
I think it's unique in a sense. It's real small and it's not followed by any fantastic cultural movement like the Undergrounds. Yet there's a certain enthusiasm. Like this thing I got today, a friend of mine publishes something down, out of town, and it's called Sense of Wonder, and this cover is just incredible. It's got 10 different artists contributing on this thing.
That are all self-published?
Yeah, they're all, well, some of them are even in sort of big time, but there's, some of them are even working for Marvel, but as lesser known people. And then there's a lot of fan people. And, they're from all over the country. Literally across the country. And this thing sells, probably about 30 copies. So they're doing it just for entertainment in itself. Just
kind of a unifying element between the
unifying
artists.
little arena for people to work together. Even though they know they're not going to be, their stuff's not going to be seen by zillions of fans. It's just a unifying medium.
More for your own amusement than...
Yeah. And another thing. Well, I thought this was all over here. Oh, here it is, yeah. Also in today's mail was this little strip I concocted for the buyer's guide. We each have our own strips, and so I scripted something that was sort of a jam strip, and two other guys sent in their work, and I'm going to send it all in as a whole and just get it printed together. So it'll be sort of a continuity newspaper comic strip.
Between all the
artists.
staff artists.
Yeah. And it gives it an element of fun, that we're sort of a team and not just individually sending in our own stuff, but we know each other and we're having fun.
How's your view of comics changed? The shift to something more mainstream. Like you might want to discuss Ultra Klutz originally being just action, pow, sex, violence, drugs, sketchiness, no character development, and then the way what it's evolved into having a complex plot.
Yeah, the Ultra Klutz is changing from its old smash, pow, and strictly violence.
In issue 1 of the Underground.
Of the Underground, it's getting away from that because I think mostly because I've got scripts for 20, 30 issues down the road, and so I've been scripting so many stories that I start to see as staleness, and it's like it needs some more substance. So I had to turn around and re-script the first one and give it a storyline. So now it's got the comedy and some sort of a continuity and a plot. And a lot of other people object to it. They say, well, the Underground was so funny, you should keep doing that. But to me, I've scripted so many stories that I know what's going to happen if I just keep doing only that. And plus, another interesting thing that kind of under the surface is that the time between doing the Underground and now was I went through a period of introspection or something, where a little pseudo-philosophic period where I was really analytic of everything. So I thought Ultra Klutz needed something
More substantial.
Something more substantial, And I kind of went overboard. There's some scripts that are a little too much, and I'll tone those back down because now I think I need to be more commercial too. So it started out as real overt violence, and then I tried to go into some sort of a statement, and now I'm just kind of veering back towards just
a compromise.
A compromise, yeah, and just focusing on just humans, realistic way that humans interact, which is always an interesting drama, without having to be profound.
That's a pretty subtle shift, you might say. Okay. So, why don't we just shut this thing off again? Okay, do you conceivably see making a living doing comics?
Yeah, I think so. Right now I'm doing the small press thing, which means you print about 500 copies and make no money. And the step above that is printing 5,000 or 10,000 copies and trying to go at it as a business.
So your stuff has that odd look. Is there, what's it going to fit into?
Yeah, it's a kind of a category of material that's not too quirky yet. It hasn't conformed to the Marvel DC superhero genre. So you've above the okay, there's the small press, then there's the independents, and then there's the big guys, which print hundreds of thousands. So in between me and them is a niche of comics that there is an audience out there for it.
Kind of alternative comics.
Yeah, alternative, independent comics. Anything else?
Yes, you're talking about just the need to even redefine terms in terms of comic books. We were talking before about the...
Yes, Bob Phillips, video mogul from the Bay Area. Oh, sorry.
Don't mock me.
Okay. You got your juice.
Definitely got to include this in the sequence.
Yeah. Here's Bob getting his cola. It's kind of like the Merv Griffin show.
Something like that. Well now, Jeff, now that you're a big star. Okay, anyway. Yeah, as far as comics, you were talking about a need to redefine terms.
Oh, yeah. As far as a label, because of the,
well, there was, I mean, this is definitely not underground. What you're doing now has nothing to do with that.
No, and it's not. Yeah, I was thinking like.
And it's not overground.
No, in fact, it doesn't even fit the term comic books, because, what is a comic book? I mean, I don't know, just the you tell somebody about a comic book and they just think, oh, you weirdo,
Yeah.
Whereas Ultra Klutz isn't just a silly comic book.
It's not for the kiddies.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's like Journey and all those others on Renegade Press.
Right.
All their stuff really couldn't hardly be appreciated.
No, and Cerebus, and because it's still called a comic book. It's sold in a comic book store. I don't know, it's funny, I mean, it doesn't fit the classification comic book because it's not necessarily funny. Comic book might not even be comical.
Yeah.
But then again, the bad name comes from the silly Marvel stuff. The superheroes, the totally absurd.
Well, the fact that it's like a comic strip.
Yeah, but those are acceptable. People aren't embarrassed to say they read the funnies in the paper.
That's true.
But they are embarrassed to say that they even would touch a comic book.
You can't say graphic novel, though, either,
No.
because that sounds so stuffy. You've got graphic novels coming out, and it's just kind of silly.
Yeah, and some guy, I think it might have been Neil Adams, was trying to get everybody to call a comic book a graphic. It's a graphic. That's...
Nothing funny about that.
Yeah, that's a little too generic and pretentious or something.
Well, comic book is a good term. It's the connotation.
Yeah. And you can't really fix that.
Well, so I guess live with it.
Yeah, we're just stuck with it. We're just so,
unappreciated.
Yeah. Persecuted. We're being persecuted. But also, it's interesting. Now it's a possibility that gives, what gives me a possibility to make it is this thing about hot comics. Comic book can be hot, even though it's right on the newsstands. It's a collector's item worth $5.
Like Fish Place.
Like Fish Place, yeah. And it's really a recent phenomenon because up until about 3 or 4 years ago, or just real recently, the only expensive comic books were the old ones, or the somewhat old. And it wasn't until
like even Cerebus was an early $1.70, or it was $1.
Well, no, I mean like do you remember when the Spider-Man 252 and Thor number 137 went up? Just because a new hot artist, or Spider-Man, his costume changed, the book was worth $5 right the month after it came off the stands. And then the most extreme case now is Miracle Man by Eclipse. Was everybody just got so excited about it, that it was worth $3 before it hit the stands, and it's a 75-cent comic.
Wow.
So it's just this. I think it's because there's so many new comics out, and the cover prices are so high. There's only so much you can buy that people aren't buying back issues anymore. It's a real dead market to back issues. Old Superman and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So people need to have something be valuable. So now it's just all of the high value comic action is in the new sales, is in the new comics,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a new thing, like Fish Police. Everybody needs a hot comic. So now, the last convention I was at, the dealers are all murmuring, "Oh, Fish Police is going to be hot, 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 hot." So they want something to be hot.
And
they want to run out.
it is as a result.
And
Just the hype.
the hype. And as soon as somebody starts to buzz about it, then that just takes off, and everybody wants it to be hot. And it's hot, hot. And here, me and you were talking about Fish Police,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't know
Because
if it's run out or if it's cost more. But it's just
Well, it's only been out a month.
yeah. But
Well, no,
so
my issue 1 is worth $5
Yeah.
this month. I'll have done a handsome profit there.
And so that could save Ultra Clips.
If it becomes hot.
Yeah.
Of course, at the same time, it could sort of go the way of Bean World,
Yeah.
where everyone, the word goes out and everybody's real excited about it. And yet,
It's established and it's accepted.
it's
But
doing something, but it never took off.
no. Everybody didn't freak out over it. And,
Probably because it was a
Tim
bit too
Cobb.
odd. It's
Yeah.
not particularly accessible.
yeah. But it's interesting, aside from the fact that it's real weird, is the guy that does it is a graphic designer.
Like you.
Like me. And you notice the cover is all typeset, the title and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's really beautiful. It's real nice graphics. And in fact, he did the ads for Eclipse.
Is that right?
Yeah, those silly ads.
His own
Sorry,
lane.
Eclipse. Yeah, those really silly ads. They were nice aesthetically, but they're out of place. These
Mhm.
Madison Avenue ads with preppy young people trying to sell comic books. Just, I don't know.
That was a good punchy bit of info. Pretty enthused, pretty conversational.
What else? What other comic book concepts? What, have you ever talked to anybody at Comics and Comics about Ultra Clips? People that sell it? Are they enthusiastic about it?
At Comics and Comics, it doesn't seem to be the thing. They get real excited. It's like you were saying about the conventions. They would get excited about something, and I think they're stocking it. And when I go in and look, it's selling. It is selling, but they don't seem to even be terribly aware. Oh yeah, Ultra Clips is right there, and they know where it is in the store.
But nobody promotes it. That's the impression I got from the couple times I was there.
Yeah, I don't think it's something that's really hip.
Yeah. And that seems to be what it takes is when you get that comic book store rap.
Yeah, well they're the
That
guys
comic
they're the guys that sold me Fish Police.
No.
Oh.
So maybe when Ultra Klutz is a valid comic with color covers and newsprint, then
Well, the
They
Comics
can
and
be comfortable
Comics, it's
talking
always
about
going to be the little comic that grew up. Something like
oh
that.
yeah, that's right.
But that's a small,
But then out
small,
in Michigan or something, maybe it'll just be, ooh, look.
just new thing,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. The little Xerox comic that grew up. But I went in there, and you were there. The first time I dropped some off, and they were all like, who are you?
Yeah.
Nobody was expecting me or anything. And I brought them in, and they said, well, what is it, an underground? And I said, no, it's just kind of I tried to I don't know, it's not an underground, and it's not a Marvel, it's something, there's a lot of comics out there like that. And he goes, oh yeah, everybody's a Warp Graphics, which is ElfQuest.
Yeah.
So he's like saying everybody thinks that they're an independent.
Graphic
What's
artists.
wrong with that? I mean, why can't we be? I mean, where's the criteria? I mean, it seems like if we don't want to be underground because it's not offensive, and if we're not superheroes, I mean, it seems like everybody has a right to be a Warp Graphics. They were real cynical about that, oh, well, Warp Graphics did it, now everybody's trying to jump on the bandwagon, type of thing. But what's wrong with that? I mean, that's what a movement is.
Yeah, right. Something I was going to ask, and it just
Oh, sorry,
fell out of
did
my
I
head.
kick it out of your head. I think I usually get the plots. The plots come when I'm not trying to think of them. when I'm if I can't sleep or something like that, and plot will just sort of creep in, like some sort of insect.
And you sort of just develop it.
Yeah, it just
at the time.
And if it's really a great story, I'll try to keep thinking about it until the whole thing fills up. There's the story, and then I get out of bed and write it down so I don't forget.
So sometimes you actually do that kind of
jump up, or sometimes I'll just remember and I'll go to sleep and then I'll get up and hope I remember it. But those are usually the rough plots, and then the story. And then I write dialogue and add jokes as it goes along.
Yeah.
Usually, the first thing I think of isn't even funny. It's just the plot. It's just the carrying weight of it all.
And then you just kind of insert gags all along the way.
Mm-hmm. It's really hard to write gags out of thin air. You have to have something that's going on, and then you pull jokes out of it. So first I'll make a situation up, and then you can look at it and say, well, what would be funny about this? And then do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of stories, it's easier to write a funny story if you're doing a satire or just upgrading an old story idea, because it just gives you a springboard instead of just out of thin air, write a story. Just like Ultra Klutz. Ultraman was just the springboard for Ultra Klutz.
Which has nothing to do with Ultraman anymore, really.
It's totally independent now, but that just helped it, give it a foundation. I don't think I have any major stories or characters or strips or anything that are just totally out of thin air. I guess nobody does, any kind of a writer. It always comes from something, but...
Some person or some incident that sparks something, sure.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything that's just...
But that brings up another question. How do you look at what you're doing? Do you look at yourself as being an artist in terms of graphic design first, or as a writer? Or do you handle them both kind of simultaneously?
I guess it's getting closer to being simultaneous as far as writer and artist, but I think I'm an artist first, an artist that tries to write, as opposed to a writer who tries to draw.
Like Dave Sims.
Like Dave Sims. I think he's more of a writer that draws.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel pretty confident about the art now. There's still a few things I need to define, but just within about the past year, I think I finally hit a solid style that I'm comfortable with. And as far as writing, it's still herky-jerky and it's kind of screwy. The writing needs work, but I think it's good enough because the humor kind of masks some of the flaws in the writing.
Yeah, there's plotting problems within, from bridging issue to issue, things that are difficult.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem with my writing is being able to stand back as a stranger who views it would see it, because I see, I've just got phone books full of size, sketchbooks full of, Ultra Klutz's life history, and it's hard for me to just narrow myself down to only being here at the 4th issue. And
with a fresh outlook on it.
Yeah, because I know everything that's going on, but to the reader right now, it's just the surface is coming through.
Yeah, they're just becoming acquainted with the whole character and everything.
Yeah, it's having to choose between bombarding somebody with too much information or making it too elusive, and they don't care, and it's, forget this. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if this is relevant or not, but I even have a rough idea of a major length of story that's going to happen with Ultra Klutz. maybe 50 issues or something. As a major chunk, like Ordain and Chaos, you know, their involvement is just always in the background, and it'll sort of come to a peak at the specific point.
And then you'll phase them out,
And they'll leave, they'll exit the book in a strange way.
You got it figured out, though?
Yeah. Something that relates to, what exactly are they? Because I call them gods, but I don't believe in gods. There's got to be some logic behind it.
Metaphysical something.
Yeah. And it'll be funny. It'll be absurd.
Well, the whole inclusion of them was such, such an improvement over the underground.
Yeah,
because
gave it more dimension.
Gave it a lot of meat, yeah. It's just such a weird thing. It showed the kind of the variety that you were shooting for, the kind of scope.
Mm-hmm.
Then that was so much different.
And then somewhere down the road, Argyl's going to be real fascinated with them because they're so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm even thinking, I don't know, maybe even doing it in little rough storylines, like Dave Sim does. How call this part the High Society and this part is something else.
Mm-hmm.
That runs a certain amount of stories. Like I'm going to end right now with issue 5, and that kind of takes care of the first
block of stories.
He's on Earth. His first time on Earth before going back. But I have some other strips that I'd like to do too. I might even do that first chunk of Ultra Klutz up to issue 50 or whatever, and then stop temporarily and do another book.
A whole new character.
I have this one silly space parody thing called Alpha Centauri. I think you've seen that.
No, I've never seen it.
And it ties in because Ordain, is Alpha Centauri is one of his worlds.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll tie into that, and then the events in that would sort of culminate up to
a thing to bring back Ultra.
Get around to the Ultra Klutz ideas, and then it would stop, and then Ultra Klutz would start up again. Just a thought. I don't know. Shit. We've been in front of the camera for days.
Shall we pause it?
Yeah.
Can you sort of summarize what Ultra Klutz is about?
I can try.
Because this can be like the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. No.
Here's what Ultra Klutz is about.
Ultra Klutz is basically an alien who comes to Earth and is something special just by virtue of his size. He's 100 feet tall, so wow, look at that. That's neat. So, and he's a hero simply because he can
do things that people can't do.
Yeah, he can attempt to battle giant monsters. He might not win, but he's out there in the arena, and so he's somewhat of a misfit, but he kind of likes it on Earth because
he gets treated good.
Because he gets treated well. He gets free food from the government of Japan. That's kind of a deal they have. And then if he gets tired of it, he can change back to Kinji, his human counterpart, and then he exists in another zone, an interdimensional closet, and he can watch television and drink beer. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. And okay, well, what else? Then he sort of fits into another grand scheme. There's these sort of godlike creatures that are sort of toying with the universe in a Calavera sort of way.
Kind of like Greek gods.
Yeah,
just manipulating events.
The planets and
for amusement, more or less.
Yeah. And so Ultra Klutz is one of those pawns, and then there's a cast of human characters too, so it's not too way out. There's the Japanese people, and And there's other Klutzians too.
Mm-hmm.
And later in the series, a lot more Klutzians are going to end up on Earth, much to the dismay of Sam, who wants Earth all to his own.
Yeah.
Even though he's still, even though he can't, combat the monsters on his own, he still prefers that to the onslaught of Klutzians that are going to show up, including like his dad, Klutz dad, and there's going to be a Klutz romance. You didn't know about that?
No.
Yeah, Klutzian woman, but she's gonna. Well, I don't want to give it away.
Buy the stupid thing. Huh?
And Klutzian police are gonna come after him, and the Klutzian mailman is gonna show up just because there's gonna be so many Klutzians on Earth. Just to make it ridiculous, the mailman shows up.
To deliver.
To deliver mail, or just he's lost. He got lost. And who else? Lots of Klutzians. And Chib, the Jivey Klutz, will be around. And then Sam is going to have to do something about that. So that's coming soon. Coming years from now, you'll see.
Relatively soon. Relative to the space between the Big Bang and the present time, it will be just less than the blink of an eye.
5 years or so.
Yeah.
What are some other curious events that are going to happen? Well, there's a lot of secrets that you don't know yet, like...
Well, there's obviously something going on with Sam that is even been eradicated from his own...
Yeah.
I don't want to say eradicated. What a stuffy word.
Well...
Removed. Taken out of his own...
Yeah.
I don't want to sound too wordy.
But that's pretty much...
What happened?
Yeah. And, so there's something going on with Sam, with Ultra Klutz and Argall, and what happened to them in their days of political intrigue. But then again, what's the deal? Because Sam and Argall were involved in some sort of a political military thing. But then again, he went to high school as a dunderhead with Joe and Chib, and he worked at
Jack in the Box.
Klutz in the Box, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So many mysteries abound. And then there's also some weird secrets about the relationship between the planet Klutz and the planet Klutzoid and the planet Rust, and those species, how they evolved. There's a whole cosmic origin and background to everything. Woo, boy!
You've been a busy guy.
Yeah. Actually, the reason for all this is because I've been drawing the thing so long without getting it published that I've had time to develop zillions of scripts.
Mm-hmm.
And keep delving deeper and deeper into it, so I know it inside out. Argall is going to go through his death wish period with his leather jacket, trying to kill Sam, and then later he's going to realize he wants to discover his secrets, so he's going to wear a suit and be more,
subtle cynicism.
Subtle.
Yeah. But it's still
menacing.
Yeah.
And then there's other things I wouldn't want to give away. But there's going to be a lot more monsters and characters and
stuff, lots of stuff.
Yeah. Well, coming up, probably in about issue 8 or so, will be as a satire of Lost in Space that I can't wait to do. It's going to be crazy. Did you like that show?
Liked it a lot.
Yeah. I'm trying to really capture the dialogue of Dr. Smith and the robot and all that. I even wrote down some of his quips when last time the show was on. Some of those,
just to get into the rhythm.
You ludicrous lumpkin, and you some of them were really off the wall, like you gregarious gargoyle, and with Dawn, spare me your poisonous barbs, Major. And
it's so funny because he was something like a NASA janitor or something.
Yeah, he was a doctor.
Oh, I thought he was just some technician.
No, he was on the first episode. He was giving them their physical, so he's actually a doctor.
Oh, so he's a total.
And he was a spy for Russia. Russian spy. So he's going to be on there, and of course, he and Sam, the Ultra-Klutz, will be human-sized aboard the ship, because when he crossed dimensions, he ended up getting small into the Lost in Space dimension, wherever that is, and so it's going to be neat because Ultra-Klutz will just be aboard the ship, and him and Dr. Smith will, plot together and how to get back to Earth, or and Ultra-Klutz will. You know how Dr. Smith steals the power pack from the robot?
Yeah, does it every once in a while.
To make him conk out.
Yeah.
The Ultra-Klutz pulls the pack out and eats it. Keeps the robot immobile.